All right, good afternoon, everybody. We are here for the work session for the City of Semmes council meeting. The meeting is called to order. What is the time?
3:04.
3:04. Called to order at 3:04. Roll call, please.
Mayor Baker.
Here.
Councilmember Watts.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Councilmember Webb.
Here.
Councilmember Platt.
Here.
Councilmember Walshy.
Here. Very good. The next item is number 3. Approval of the minutes from the previous work session, council meeting of August 15th, 2017. You have those in your packets. If you would take a few minutes to look at those, if you haven't already, take your time. I'll give you as much time as you need to look over those. Those are minutes from the work session in the middle of August, the last meeting we had. Okay, is everybody, anyone still reviewing the minutes from the last work session?
Move it be approved.
Right there.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Good. The minutes from the previous work session are approved. Presentations, the first presentation is Chief Brooks with the August fire report. Welcome, Chief Brooks.
Amen.
Mayor.
How you doing?
Our August monthly fire report, 76.52% were rescue and emergency calls, 1.14% hazardous condition no fire, 4.55% service calls, 11.74% were good intent calls, 3.03% were false alarms, and 3.03% were fires. Broken down to major incident types, we had 8 fires, 202 rescue and emergency medical service calls, 3 hazardous condition no fire, 12 service calls, 31 good intent calls, and 8 false alarms, for a total of 264. Training for the month, company drill training, we had a little over 64 hours, continuing education, 225 hours, driver operator training, 65 hours, fire and life safety education, 40 hours, firefighter health and wellness, 92 hours, Hazardous materials training, 2 hours. Officer continuing education, 145. And pre-incident walkthrough on our businesses, we had 82 hours for 27 personnel, a little over 715 hours for the month. So we're very busy. Our fire inspector did 32 business inspections this month. Y'all can go down the list here. Average response time, average turnout time, that's dispatch to en route. Station 1, EMS calls was 55 seconds. Fire was 41 seconds. Station 2 had a time of 49 seconds for EMS, 35 seconds for fire. Station 3, EMS was a minute, and fire calls was 55 seconds for an average of all 3 stations, 54 seconds. And that's under
Great.
average response time. Of course, that's when we get en route to when we get on scene, District 2, Station 2's area, 7 minutes 29 seconds. Station 3, 7 minutes and 20 seconds. Station 1, 6 minutes and 33 seconds. Next side. I'm missing a couple of slides. I gave y'all an organizational chart. I think y'all have that in front of you. And just want to kind of let y'all know where we stand on our personnel at our 3 stations. Of course, we have the fire chief, training captain, the fire inspector. Station 1, if you see the color-coded areas, they represent each shift. The red is first shift, the green is second shift, and the blue is third shift. Station 1, we have a captain, a driver, and a firefighter on each shift. Station 2, we have a lieutenant and a driver on each shift, and a lieutenant and a driver on each shift in Station 3. Station 1, right now, our KME pumper is running out of that station. That's our brand new pumper, 2015. Station 2, the 1998 Ferrari pumper just went out of service with transmission problems. So we've had to put our reserve truck. It's a 1998 model, so it's almost 20 years old. And then Station 3, we're running our 1998 Ferrari ladder out of it. We just got the maintenance report back on it. It's almost $10,000. We're waiting to put that in the shop after the aerial class that our training officers will be teaching next week. Reserve trucks, we have that 2001 pumper that we're going to put on gov deals. That we've outgrown that truck. It's only a 2-man cab. And then we have a reserve 1998 International pumper that we just put in service out of Station 2. So, to the next slide. So I was asked to present some capital expenditures. And one of the things we've got to start looking at is replacing some of our engines. We've got a couple that's over 20 years old. And usually after 10 years of service, they're put in reserve. So we're running some of these trucks first out. So I would love to see us purchase a mini pumper, which is half the size of a full-size pumper, and it still get credit for ISO. Our ladder truck is a 20-year-old truck. We spend anywhere from $8,000 to $20,000 on it a year after our aerial inspection. So, we need to start thinking about replacing the ladder truck. I think we can get a couple more years out of it. Future relocation of Station 3. There's a lot of talk about where it's located. We timed it the other day. It takes 1 minute and 10 seconds to get from the station to Schillinger's. You know, we could shave that amount of time off of there if we could relocate it back up towards Moffett Road, which is where the majority of our calls are located. Station 2, the resurfacing of the driveway is around $20,000. Part of that can be offsetted by South Alabama Utilities and stay on the right-of-way in the building that we're leasing, so probably could shave some of that off. Station 2 expansion, if we're ever going to add more people to that station, we're going to have to expand the day room and the dormitory out. So Mark from Public Works, I've gotten with him and come up with a price about $7,000, about 120 square feet that will we can add on to that station. Is that all the slides? All right, I'm missing some slides. I also gave y'all a picture of Pritchard's mini pumper that I was talking about. And that truck is great for getting into places where our full-size pumper can't get. It will save us fuel. It will be better suited for running medical calls, and then we also get credit for ISO. So that's something that I'm looking at to replace one of our engines with. Right now, we're only running 2 engines in a ladder, and according to ISO, we've got to run 3 engines in a ladder. So my plan would be to purchase a mini pumper, put it at Station 1 with the ladder truck, and move engine 1 to Station 3. So that way we start running 3 engines in a ladder to every structure fire and start getting full credit.
Chief, is this truck is for sale?
No, so that's a truck
Just an example.
they just purchased. Actually, they spec'd it out. They got a grant.
Okay.
And so that's something similar that I want to go to. The only thing about that truck is, you know, you can't carry all the equipment that you need on it. You know, it only carries about 300 gallons of water. You can't put a full complement of ladders on there. And but it would be well suited for us along with our other full-size engines.
Chief, I see that Mobile bought 2 of those mini pumpers also. So.
I'd like to show that video, Brandy, now. This is an independent study that was done on career fire departments, and it just kind of shows you, how much manpower you need at a structure fire.
Is it Paul?
Play Randy.
Truck.
Is that?
That's it.
There you go.
My phone doesn't work.
Well, they don't waste
Okay.
time.
That's all right. This is an independent study taken for career fire departments, and it just says you need 15 people on scene when you get to a fire to do all the specific tasks needed. Also, you need to be able to respond with 4 men on the first engine within 4 minutes. We're close to that, but not where we need to be. And that's just, station locations and adding more manpower. Excuse me, more manpower.
Okay, any questions, Mr. Smith?
No question, thank you.
Mr. Wall?
No, sir.
Mr. Walshy?
No.
Mr. Platt?
No.
Mr. Webb?
No.
Thank you, Chief,
Thank you
for the
very much.
information. Good.
Stay in touch.
Yes, sir. Next will be Mr. Hayaski with an LED streetlight proposition, and this is in addition to the existing LED streetlight project, right? Okay, this is new.
All right, a few months ago, I presented information concerning phase 1 of street lighting. Jason and I picked out locations mainly based on dangerous curves or dangerous intersections that were dimly lit or not lit at all. All of those have been installed. If you've driven around the city, you've seen them on the curve at Wolf Road, you've seen them on Fire Tower Road, multiple places like that. We've had great feedback from everything that I've heard from that, and we're starting with phase 2. We've looked at 11 locations so far. We want to use the same type bulbs, the LED, the 103 watt LED Leotech 4000K. I've been in contact with Alabama Power, just got off the phone with them walking in here, and I'm going to have a meeting with the engineering, and we'll go out to each location that I'm about to discuss. First would be right at the intersection of Nick Libb Lane and Roberts Lane West. A little bit more. Southwest. All right. I know those are big symbols, but that was the only way you could show it on the map when it was zoomed out. The other location, as you can see, due east is going to be Roberts Lane and Roberts Lane East. If you go north on Roberts Lane, you'll see Roberts Lane and Wolf Road South intersection. If you continue north, Wolf Road and Northville Drive North intersection. If you continue to go north on McCrary, you'll be at McCrary Road and Vickers. And then just to the north and to the east of that, McCrary and Paula Drive. If you go to the southeast, you will be at Pomona Parkway and Harvest Boulevard South. Excuse me. If you go to the south, we're going to go to Fire Tower and Ward's Lane. And then the east of that would be Whitestone Drive and Ward's Lane. East of that would be Crestwood Drive and Ward's Lane. And then far north would be Spice Pond Road and Broadest Loop Road. There it is. And so right now, those are 11 that we've identified. I drove around city limits at night, and we go through just to kind of check and see which areas were pitch black. And especially if you go down Roberts Lane, I mean, there's nothing out there other than an occasional light that maybe someone's paying for themselves. That's phase 4. They're on house.
Right.
And so these 11, it's up to y'all as far as locations that y'all see fit. There may be additional ones added just based on any need.
Sure.
And we would just, as far as I know, be able to amend the resolution that y'all have already voted on for phase 1, and then Alabama Power would in turn add that to our monthly bill. So, is there any questions?
Mr. Smith, any questions?
I'm glad you're on the case. It sounds like a great addition for the city.
So,
Mr. Watts? Mr. Webb?
What did we do this summer? On,
Well, we did,
Fire Tower
how many did you do
Road.
before? You did,
we did 19.
we did 19 in phase
I know
1.
that, but
Yeah.
I'm just.
Plus 3 intersections. major intersections.
And I think, yeah, and.
Too bad curves on, go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, sir. Yeah, Mr. Webb's right, yeah. Well, we're doing these as we can finance them and become aware of them.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Mr. Webb.
There's two big curves there on, Hotshot Road, but, I don't live over that way, but I've been through that at night, and they are a lot of help. We've had people, southbound that go out into the, yard
Yes, sir.
of the people that live there, and, coming back the other way and the other curve down there, we've had people run off the highway. Running too fast, but they can see that curve, and it's just really a great, great idea.
Right.
We thank everybody for
Yes, sir. Mr. Platt?
getting the job done.
What has occurred over at, or what have you done at Halsbury and Fire Tower?
That was one that I guess necessarily wasn't in our city limits, but was still inside of our PJ and close enough for us to go ahead and take care of it. We spoke with Mobile County and they were okay. That was one of the ones that were done in phase one. I know Jason and I had gotten a couple calls as far as why the mounting arm was oriented the way it was and not more towards House Ferry. And I spoke with Alabama Power after that, and it was because of the wires and all the lines that were in the way.
Have you been back out there since those lights were installed?
Yes, sir.
And how does it look?
It's very evident, very, you're able to see that there is that intersection there, whereas before, you'd be driving down there and you'd almost miss the curve. There's a lot of wrecks there as well.
The reason I ask is, do you think that you could do some more? There's 28 people that want a little bit more. But,
Well, I think that's what he's talking about.
yeah, I mean,
He wants input.
if you've
Yeah.
been out there,
Yeah.
do you think it would help if you'll look at it and?
There could always be more, especially in that curve, I guess, at House Ferry. I guess the thing that it would be more dependent on is if we're willing to do more lights outside of just the city limits
Yeah.
into our PJ as well, which
Well,
of course is
yeah.
covered by our fire department and through Mobile County Sheriff's Office.
I don't think we'd have any trouble getting the council to approve it because of the number of people that want it improved. So if you would just check into it. And
Yeah.
the only other question I've got is, have you worked with the SO and asked them about where they would like?
I have not at this point, but I can.
I appreciate that.
And I'll just say from me and Jason, we're willing to do as many as possible as we can support.
Sure.
So
Well, I appreciate it, Mr. Platt, giving us that list. If you can add that to your research and maybe do a cost estimate of it.
yeah, okay.
Okay. And I'd encourage the rest of the council, if you have any streets or danger zones or problem areas that you would like to have looked at, get them to Tyler.
Yeah.
And so that's good. Mr. Platt, anything else on that?
And you understand this is not criticism. I've
No.
done a great job.
No.
It's just that now that you've done a great job, they want more.
Yes, sir. I understand.
Mr. Walsh, you have questions, sir?
No.
Okay. Before we go to item C, I didn't want to ignore our Sheriff's Department. Captain Robinson's here today. I know that we have traditionally, for every 2-week period in the past few months, been averaging about over 500 calls from the Sheriff's Department to citizens within the police jurisdiction. Do you want to elaborate on that, or?
I've actually got some stats, I think.
Oh, please
You have
do,
a
yeah.
PowerPoint presentation that already sent it. If not, I have it here. I mean, the reporting times that he gave me were from the 16th of July through the August 15th.
Yeah.
And basically, calls for service during that time frame was 1,172, which is up 88 from last year, time frame.
1,172 calls?
Right,
Okay.
over that period of time.
All right, there you go. You're up.
When, probably second slide. Our primary calls of service from 2017 is 911 hang-ups. They've kind of went up or decreased quite a bit, and the reason for that is how we catalog them. We don't catalog everything under a 63 circumstance anymore, suspicious circumstance. We catalog it as what it is. And if it develops into something bigger, then it denotes a different code. But that's mainly the reason. You know, you talk about 911 hang-ups, it's cell phones. It's, we get tower locations, and that's what we respond to, literally going to areas where there's a tower, and we're looking for problems. Normally, we always leave the area without unfounded, you know, because we're responding to people who have just phones, their service has been cut off, but 911 still works. It really takes up quite a bit of service time dealing with this, because this happens frequently. Thefts, you know, they're up a little bit as well. You can see where last year 226 versus 54 this year, same time frame. You know, a lot of this goes down to people leaving their cars unlocked. There's a big trend right now, especially with youth. Now it's gonna decrease since kids went back to school, but they call it lock bumping or door bumping. They just hit the door locks, and the easiest way to stop that is to lock your cars. And it's been all over the news, all over our social media. Please lock your cars. There's nowhere safe. They're hitting carports, they're hitting garages if you leave them open. And there's a group coming, we know, out of 8 Mile of Pritchard, who are coming around dropping folks off. They hit them, then they steal a car, and they go back to Pritchard in it after they're done. So, you know, this has been going on for a while. It's just become really trendy this year. The other thing is stolen vehicles. You know, we had 7 during this time frame last year, same time frame. We had 5. We're up 2. We can pretty much discern that most of our stolen vehicles is done by a group of people and a couple individuals that I'm going to talk about here in a few minutes that we've actually arrested. Our residential burglaries, they've increased. Again, it's the same thing. A lot of these residential burglaries was done by the same exact people involved. The next slide, you'll see the commercial burglaries. They're actually down, you know. And normally, again, it's a specific group that's targeting these commercial burglaries. You know, if you remember back last year, specifically, the pharmacy, Semmes Pharmacy, was getting hit quite a bit. You know, that was the same individuals that were hitting that pharmacy as hitting the ones in Theodore and Grand Bay. You know, so once we were able to catch them, they're actually caught in the city. You know, that kind of solved that problem. Again, the vehicle burglaries, you know, they're actually down. You know, during this particular reporting period, probably if you go back a month or so, they were probably up quite a bit because of in the middle of summer and having these same problems we've been having. Commercial alarms, you know, they're actually down too. Again, it's, you know, Walmart started closing their doors in this shopping center at midnight, and that helps quite a bit. I mean, you'd be surprised how many calls we get just dealing with the commercial issues right here at Walmart. Significant events on the next slide, you're going to see probably one more. Maybe one more. There you go. We had back in August 1st, we had an ATV that was stopped right here off Redstone and Fire Tower around the corner, and both subjects were arrested. One of the individuals on the next slide, you'll see that Lonnie Odom Jr., which was all over the news, he was responsible for quite a few residential burglaries and vehicle thefts in this area. He had just got out of jail on like a Friday and was breaking into stuff on a Sunday. We chased him for 2 weeks. In that 2 weeks time, I think we ended up he had 4 warrants on him, and we actually charged him with a receiving first and a few other stolen vehicles during this time frame. This was one of the females he was with. The second time we were able to arrest her. We had another female he was with prior to this stop, which is back in July. The next slide is going to denote on the 4th, we stopped an occupied vehicle with 2 males in it, and they were also arrested right there on Ward's Lane. Most of these elements tend to cluster in certain places, and that's basically what we've done. We've determined that the locations, and we essentially started staking them out and watching them. It's basically like hunting over a baited field. It is, and so it's helped us quite a bit. We've been really successful with that. The next slide shows denotes the Richard Redmond subject, you know, who was arrested for receiving first and 3 different possessions of controlled substance charges and a drug paraphernalia charge. And the female that was with him, Sydney Smith, she was also arrested for a burglary third. Come to find out that he lives on his family live on Fire Tower Road, He had just got out of prison, and the car that they found was parked in his mother's driveway, loaded down with a burglary that just occurred on Children's Road the night before. So it broke down on him. So, no reliable transportation. The next event's gonna be where, again, going back to, Jarvis Lane, I'm sorry, not Jarvis Lane, Redstone, same area, Lonnie Odom Jr., that's the area that they live in right there off Redstone. And again, more vehicles stolen. That was another one he was charged with too. And that's been the whole case all year long. Again, Amy Jarvis was with him a second time, right, on the next slide. She was also charged with, theft first from stolen, or receiving stolen property. A lot of this, guys, is the fact that they're getting out so soon, all right? There's very little deterrent, for whatever reasons it may be, that we're just not able to lock up nonviolent offenders. They just don't stay in jail very long. They're able to get bonds, they're able to get out. And what do you say? You keep them in jail, and take the room away from the violent offenders, because that's the other side of it. We're running anywhere from 1,000 to 1,200 people in a jail that's designed to hold 900 every day. So, and it's been that way. It's been a lot worse, and right now it's actually down. So, there's really nothing for the courts to do about it. Again, Lonnie Odom was arrested, and this last arrest, they actually revoked his bond, and he stayed in jail. He's on no bond right now, waiting probation revocation. That's really all we had for that reporting period. If you look back, most of these cases that we have are trending around a select few of individuals, and once we can identify who they are and take them out of the equation, then it goes away. Now that school's back, you're going to see a lot of our vandalism, our general theft stuff. It's going to drop off because the kids have somewhere to be, and it is what it is. We've got a situation right now currently where our manpower in Semmes consists of basically you have 2 full-time deputies that are on 24/7 and a supervisor who works a day shift. If y'all's budget will allow it, we would love to increase that to where we have 2 full-time deputies and a supervisor who's on 24/7. Not to mention Corporal Hardy staying as the administrative supervisor for the city of Semmes, and he has 2 more supervisors that are on shift. So it'll give 3 responding units per shift. If we had 2 more additional deputies, we would like to see y'all look at doing maybe in October. That would help tremendously. If you got a bunch of money and you're feeling really frosty about it, we love a detective. But at the end of the day, we'd much rather have the people, the deputies on the ground, answering calls, servicing the citizens of Semmes. Anybody got any questions for anything that I talked about?
And the number for the month was what?
11, let's see,
1172.
1172.
Okay, 1,172 calls responded to
Right.
within the city of Semmes police jurisdiction.
Right.
Okay. All right.
Captain, the calls are broken down. Those calls are not your total for your north side units. That's for
That's for
Semmes.
Semmes JD. Has nothing to do with the north side.
That's Semmes and JD.
That's the jurisdiction of Semmes.
Okay.
And city limits and jurisdiction.
That's a mile and a half out from any point on it.
Right.
Okay.
How do you code suspicious persons, con artists, door to door?
Well, a lot of it has to do with the responding deputy. We've tried to get away from 63, we call it a suspicious circumstance, and we went to an investigation call, which is a 64. Now, does that make any sense? Well, one actually denotes criminal activity, the other is just an administrative clearance. All right, so that allows us, that's the beauty of stats. I can make a sandwich look like a hot dog if you give me 15 minutes and, a couple sheets of paper. Stats can be put in any direction you want, and what we're trying to do is be as transparent as we can, because that's the one thing about our sheriff. We don't want to get in a situation where we're relying on stats. It is what it is. We have a criminal element in Mobile County, and our job is to fight it the best we can. The more we can get our citizens involved in what we're doing and in the equation to help us, the better off we'll be. But the codes, we've started trying to dial back on 63s, because if they're not really that, And our dispatchers are like anybody else. They'd much rather label something as a 63 circumstance than a domestic violence call or something in that level. You know, our deputies respond to two people having an argument at a house as a domestic violence call if it goes out. Well, if they get that and it stays that way, they're required to do so much paperwork involved in that. Right? If there's no signs of violence and there's been no reason to believe there was violence there, then it's just changed to a 64, so it only requires them to do a report instead of having to effect an arrest, right? And people do have disagreements all the time when there's no signs of violence, so you understand that. But if a dispatcher's on one end of the line and she's getting a phone call from somebody that's upset and heated because they've been in an argument, well, it can sound like anything, you know. So you really don't know till you get there because it's so one-dimensional over a telephone versus people being there who sees it, who understands the scenario, who's able to work through it. You know, it's just like burglar alarms versus theft of property. Car alarms. You know, we show up because Walmart's called in an alarm. Well, it may not be at Walmart. It may be in the parking lot, and an alarm's going off on the car. Somebody called from the parking lot at Walmart. Well, because it came in from Walmart, it comes out as commercial. Until we get there and we realize that it's an individual complaint and not a commercial complaint, which is two different categories. You know, and obviously, you know, it depends on which deputy responds and how they go about categorizing themselves, because ultimately that's what we go by is the deputy's decision. Now, what we try to do is educate and train our deputies to give them you know, what they need to make the right decision, and you hope they do that, just like everybody else. You know, sometimes they get it right. Yes, sir.
How do they recover their stolen goods here in Semmes? How do they go about if something's, you know, broke into and stolen?
Well, if it can be recovered, I mean, you know, a lot of times a theft case or some residential theft case in point. 3 weeks ago, I was leaving Walmart. Male's walking through the parking lot carrying a weed eater on his shoulder on a Sunday. I get on the phone. He's going right to the pawn shop with it. You can see him going right to the pawn shop on the hill. Get on the phone, calling dispatcher. Hey, anybody got a theft of property? Yeah, we just had a bunch of tools stolen right up the street. So get a unit over here. Yep, we were able to get it right back to him, right then and there. No problem. Take him into custody. The guy literally just walked to his carport, took his stuff and left. Put some stuff in the woods, and he was taking it one part at a time to the store. So we were able to make a case on it. No big, you know, just because I was in the right place at the right time, which a lot of that, you know, denotes. But in general, if some things are never recovered, depending on what it is, hopefully that we've got serial numbers. The best thing to do, you know, in any case is tell your constituents to write all their serial numbers down, to make sure they keep values, make sure they have pictures. You know, just don't put it on a computer and think that's enough. Print it out and put it safe somewhere, because what if they steal your computer? You know, they've got all your information with everything else on it. You know, but the bottom line is, it's really common sense. You know, that's been around for thousands of years. I mean, ultimately, you just got to lock your doors. You know, you just got to keep your doors locked and be responsible for what's yours. You know, be your own property. How many times have you saw lawnmowers left at the street and things like that because they're going to get gas and they just leave it there? Well, you know, 30 years ago you could do that. Now you can't. You know, because people will run off with it. I mean, this area is growing tremendously, and it has, and it's going to continue. Everybody wants to move out this way, you know, and with that you get a lot of traffic, you know, and because of that, there's no way to discern the good or the bad and all that, you know. And with the good, you're going to get some bad, you know. Locks only make for honest people anyway, and that's all we can do is we can prepare to deal with the honest folks and not the bad ones, you know. If that makes sense, you know. I mean, is there any way to stop it? All we can do is try to deter it as best we can, and we can try to put good guys out there who wants to catch them. You know, that's the thing. And right now we've got a fairly decent crew, and if we increase our numbers up here, what we're going to probably do is take a couple of our guys and make a proactive detail where they just don't work a set schedule. They work a high crime schedule, which, you know, for a young police officer, it gives him the ability to fight crime and suppress evil, because he's going to be out there on the midnight shifts. He's going to be out there on the holidays. He's going to be out there when it's really happening, you know. it takes a group to do that, and we do this in the rest of the county, we call it directed units. And basically what we do is we take these stats that we have, and we figure out that, Fire Tower Road is obviously an issue. So we take these units and we place them on Fire Tower Road to look for the traffic where these bad guys live at, so we can catch these bad guys out and about, and ultimately they would develop cases on them. And one of these particular individuals was caught by, was fortunate enough to be caught by Semmes units, the Odom boy was. Actually, Corporal Hardy was one of the people who was responsible for catching Mr. Odom, so, which goes a lot for him, because this guy, we've been chasing him with dogs and everything for about a week and a half before Brad was able to catch him. So it's just knowing where they live and watching it. We knew that. We knew he had 2 locations, and we were watching both of them. So it kind of paid off. Luck helps too. I mean, it's not always skill. Luck helps a lot. Is what we did. Anybody else?
Mr. Smith, any questions?
Appreciate the report. Thank you.
Yes.
Mr. Watt?
No, thanks.
Mr. Webb, any questions?
No, thank you. Thank you very much. Be careful.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Platt, any questions?
No, thank you, Kevin.
Mr. Walsh?
The only thing I would add, I live on Fire Tower Road right there, where the intersection you were talking about, and it hasn't. Them LED lights have made an impact on Fire Tower Road. Are we having wrecks there? The wrecks probably are not going to stop, but that intersection is really lighted now, and those curves that they did fix has made a big difference. And I drive it all hours of the night. And it really, I wish you could come down my neighborhood and put me about 4 in my neighborhood. But Fire Tower Road, it's made a big difference. It really has. We really appreciate it over there.
If you will, just pass it on to Public Works, let them know where.
Yeah. We're reviewing all the lights, so add it to it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Okay, before we get to item C, we're going to be talking about, Mr. Smith, Councilmember Smith is going to be talking about the proposed budget, the draft proposed budget for next fiscal year. What I want to mention to the council is this. The information you're going to be given today, we want you to take it home. We want you to study it. We want you to ask questions. You have 10 working days to do that. And please, I encourage each and every one of you to come by my office, come by anyone's office working for the city, connected to the city, and ask questions, so that when we reconvene in 2 weeks, the questions shouldn't be that many. If we need to amend or adjust something, we can do that. But please, I'm asking you to take this information you have, take it home, study it, make your comments. If you have questions, again, call me, call City Hall, call the city clerk. We'll work with you on that. But we need to nail this thing down at the next meeting so we can have this budget approved long before 1 October. So I just wanted to mention that to you before Mr. Smith starts. So I appreciate your help on that. And Mr. Smith, that said, we now move to you for the proposed budget for 2017-18.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yep.
We have some late financial information. I want to thank our financial department. Our entire financial department is DJ Wally. Normally it takes several days or a week to get all the financial information at the end of the month. Knowing this meeting was coming up, she jumped on in and got it at dawn practically on September the 1st. And we really appreciate it. She knew that we would want to know what was going on here in our city with our finances. Mr. Mayor and council and esteemed attendees of this meeting today, on behalf of the Finance Committee of the City of Semmes, I want to present our proposed budget for fiscal year 2017-2018, which begins October the 1st, just a few short weeks away. The information I have handed out here is very much to the point. Your Finance Committee has been looking each month as the months have gone by to see what's happening with finances. There have been a lot of questions about what's going to happen to the economy in this country, and of course we're very keenly aware of potential problems and things that might go up or down, so we've been looking each month at the performance. That means the income from various different tax sources and the expenses of our city. As We jumped in, of course, the Baker administration took over when the actual fiscal year was well underway. And so, notice there was some pretty strong action at the beginning of the year here where expenses jumped up above the income. That was a little bit alarming, and we did watch that very closely. The thing we're looking for is to try to forecast the income that we might work with for the coming year. If you look down in the lower left-hand corner of your chart there, you'll see some colored lines, but you'll see a little black straight line. That's generated by the computer program to try to determine for us what the trend is. At the beginning of the year, that trend line was upward, just slightly upward. As the days went by, the months went by, that tilted over till its point slightly downward. It's a little bit discouraging. However, maybe we know more than it knows, and maybe we know that that is not deemed to be significant, but it is significant in that we are treating that as a level line. That is to say, we're not looking for naturally a lot more money to be coming in next year. We're going to be working on bringing in more money, but right now we just have to go with the numbers, and we are saying that we are forecasting that the city of Semmes will receive $6.1 million in the coming year. When we finally took that into consideration, and by the way, on this chart here, you see information Ms. Wiley provided for us, which has already been put in. So you have 11 months, 11 complete months of financial data. But we're having to forecast for the future with 1 month left to go. We think we have a pretty good handle on it, but anyway, you'll be the final judge of that. So with that in mind, and if you look on your budget proposal here, you'll see at the bottom the sources of income that we are looking at and expecting. You'll see how we arrived at the 6.1 million. I'll note for the folks who are really interested in this that some of these funds are restricted funds. They can only be used for roads and related things. There are other restrictions on some other funds, but in any case, we are taking them in the whole. When it gets down to actually spending funds, we'll make sure that we're using restricted funds for asphalt and unrestricted funds for tools and equipment. Speaking of that, let me tell you this. The Finance Committee, and there are actually two members of the Finance Committee with us here, Commissioner Jeanette Byrd right here, and Commissioner and Councilman Lawrence Webb over here on the committee. So they were very strong in several things. One of those was that we would only be talking about operating funds. For the benefit of our audience here today, if I could make the differentiation between operating funds and capital investments. You buy a car, you drive it for 3 or 4 years, you put in gasoline, that's operating expense. The capital expense is the car. After me, I buy a car, maybe secondhand, and drive it for 12 and 14 years, and put in tires, battery, oil, gasoline. Those are operating expenses, but the price of the car was the capital expense. Councilman Webb over here will buy a vehicle and drive it for maybe 25 years. Put a lot of tires, a lot of gas in. That's operating expense, but the original cost, which is now spread over all those years, that's capital expense. Our Mayor Baker will buy a pickup truck, drive it for 30 years, paint it, and keep on driving it until somebody offers him $1 million to collector's item. That's capital, okay? All the gas, all that's operating expense. We are working around to get our bookkeeping system going so that we are talking about operating expense in this budget. Capital expenses will be a whole different thing. The Finance Committee absolutely positively would not let me talk about proposals for capital spending at this time. They put their foot down, and I now see the wisdom of that. So we are just talking about keeping on, keeping on. What does that include? That includes payroll expense. That's the big item, payroll expense. We have quite a few people now working for this city. Pretty big operation. Do we have the pie chart, please? Thank you very much. You may have do you have a copy of the pie chart with you there? If you don't, it's going to come up on the screen in just a moment.
I think they do.
Do you want the operating or the distribution?
Let's do the distribution first. There we go. Well, that's the, yes, okay, that's the distribution. Right there we see that the money that we're talking about spending on operating,
There it is.
you'll see the blue is what? That's policing. The red is fire and rescue, okay? The green is public works by special request of the Public Works Department. And the pink or magenta there, that's City Hall. We have 4 ladies who run City Hall. Okay? Now, the yellow contains 4 fractional items, smaller things all grouped together there, just to keep from getting it splintered up too much. So the picture, though, is the pie chart there is on purpose because it gives us a pictorial reference how much we're spending on the different departments. The big numbers there, you can see we're talking about spending $1.5 million on the fire department. We look pretty closely at that. We feel like that is a pretty good number. Covers the payroll for the fire department. And you'll notice the pay for the fire department is $1,288,000 on our budget proposal here. So the lion's share of that, the fire department is payroll. Now, right here, we're looking at our overall budget proposition. Okay, on your left side, you see all of the income, 6.1 million. On the right side, you see all the expenditures plus another thing that the Finance Committee insisted we show right on the face here, and that is $500,000 at the bottom there for the Budget Stabilization Fund. This is not actually an expense. It means we're transferring money from one pocket to the other. We're transferring it to this other account. We still have that money, but it is excluded from our usage in operating the city. So we're going to consider it for this presentation as being an expense. At some later date, we'll probably want to talk about, and when we talk about our capital plans for the future, we'll want to talk about that money that's in the budget stabilization plan. Right now, we're just talking about a budget for us to keep on keeping on, and we're talking about having the amount on the right side, which is $5.1 million available for operations. The part on the right is the part that goes into all these different departments we show on the distribution. We will hop back to this distribution again. The part on the right goes back and is distributed to the different departments in this manner. This will be a good time for me to stop and ask if you have a question. Has a question come into your mind yet? No questions? I might answer a question that you might ask. Why is so much money in administration? Well, here's one of the reasons. Things that cover the entire city operation are often like insurance. Very, very big, high-ticket insurance policies. They're swept into administration. In the future, we'll probably have our bookkeeping system distribute those costs so that it shows it where it should be, each fraction of it around it. But right now, many expenses of the whole operation are swept into administration. So it's not quite as top-heavy in administration as you might surmise from this. Okay? Any other questions? No other questions? Okay. Then let's I'm not going to read the budget to you, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Mr. Mayor, if you think it appropriate, I would like to discuss my public safety report while this is on the screen, because I'm always looking for money for public safety.
Well, probably,
What's your recommendation?
We'll let me finish this and then we'll maybe approve the budget and then we'll talk about that.
Approve, what's,
All right, if we go back now to the, there we go. This leaves, if we hold to this, if we receive the 6.1 million, and if we hold our expenses to 5.1 million, that leaves us a little under $1 million, which is available for capital expenditures. That's what I would propose. Think that we have most of our departments are already operating full up. We could probably add several thousand people to our population and still be covered. Certainly our fire department already covers well out of our range. That's not to say we can't make constant improvements, but I'm just saying they are full up. It's not just a part-time thing anymore. They are really on the case. Incrementally, there'll be more expenses for the public works as we take in more territory, of course. But in terms of being capitalized, that is having heavy equipment, having the management overhead, there's only an incremental expense there as you increase. So what I'm saying is we have pretty much a full-up government and the government operation. We could probably take a couple more thousand people in our city limits and not have to expand our budget very much at all. Back to what I'm saying here is that money that's coming out there that's left over, just under $1 million on this proposed budget, is not money to throw away frivolously, and none of us would want to do it. And the public should understand that we're not talking about just increasing our expenses to put the overage there. That is, I would propose, is what we need to use for a building, doing things that will go into capital investment, which people can use for 20, 30, 40 years. And we'd be talking about capital on a different day. Today, we're just talking about this as proposed distribution of our funds to keep on operating. Let's talk about budget theory for just a moment. Budgets are done in very different ways. Some, at the end of the budget year, if you haven't used all your money up, in some cities, some operations, the department gets to keep those funds and roll them over, or carry them over, as they say. We don't do that. It's like a new ball game every year. It's like a new football game. Like you don't go back and take the excess score from last year's Alabama-Auburn game and bring it forward. It's a clean start every time. Your bragging rights are in doing a better job at a lower cost every year, beating the budget, doing the job and saving money on the budget. It's a yardstick. It's a management tool, and we're going to try to get all of our people to play the game straightforward fashion. That is to say, charge expenses to the right department. So next year we can refine our budget, and over a period of time, the budgets and the operation will be in closer harmony. Okay, there's a lot of things that we've done. We've had lots of discussions. We've had many versions. We've done a lot of scratching on the paper, changing things. There are just a few things, actually, that are novel, slightly novel in this budget. Don't want to slip anything by on anybody. Trying to improve as we go. If you look on a previous budget or financial, you'll see that a number of local operations are listed with some money for advertising for each one. Number of events. And then over here, another place in our books, the same organizations are listed with grants. And it's like, they keep getting added on here. What we're proposing to do is to have a one-stop shop here and give the ones that we want to give grants to, the funds, do it appropriately, legally of course, but keep the eye on the ball instead of having it fractured here, there, and yonder. Another thing we've done is we have here some proposals that one of the finance committee members obtained. He went around, interviewed some of the high school principals, not just high school, and found some of the things that we could identify that we could really do that were identifiable projects small enough to handle something that where we could actually help out with some of the local schools. And so we have $36,000 for that. Senior Center is adding a lot of space, big room in the back of their building there, and they're asking for additional funds for previous years, and so we are proposing $30,000 for the Senior Center. And they have promised that anytime we want to meet at their place, they'll be happy to have us. So we'll have to expand our city limits out to take them out. The Boys and Girls Club asked for $30,000, and we have that in the budget. We have $20,000 in for the Heritage Park, which is demonstrably our one claim to historical fame here, and something we, of course, want to make sure we maintain. So, other than that, we have $44,000 for what we call community outreach. There are a large number of activities that go on, and want to bring these into a situation where we evaluate these things and see if they're valuable to citizens or not, and either continue doing them or approve doing them or just continue to do it, not just let them all automatically go on from year to year. Let's see what else we have. Any other questions on that particular subject? That's under admin there.
Mr. Smith, were
Yes.
we supposed to have a copy of what you're reading from?
Yes, I thought everybody had a copy of that.
Anything
you don't see, we'll get to you.
I thought we had a copy of for each one. I'm sorry. We'll,
We'll get you copies. Anything you see on the board you don't have, we'll make sure you have.
yep.
Before you leave.
I thought everybody had a copy. My bad. Okay, then I won't get too far into the weeds, okay? I still won't read it because you have to see it on paper. Basically, in effect, that's the package price for each one of those departments and their functions right there. And what we need to know is if you see anything that we could do different in terms of the division of the money we have with the personnel we have.
And that's getting back to what I said earlier. It's imperative that the council take all this data with them and study it, look at each line item, ask the questions now, ask the questions over the next preferably 5 or 6 working days so that we can get to a final product the next time we meet. We don't want to be asking basic questions 2 weeks from tonight, this afternoon, that we could have researched far, far in advance. So please take it apart. Make sure before you leave today that you have copies of everything you're supposed to have, that you've seen, that you think you've seen, or anything else you need. But please take your time in tearing this apart. And that will help us in the.
Any other questions I can answer on the spot?
Mr. Smith, you're not going to discuss the capital funds, which would include, I would think, your budget stabilization fund. My concerns are with that item. I know that you and I have discussed this before, But I would have an issue, honestly, with approving the budget without a discussion about what's gonna happen to the stabilization fund money. In a rare moment, I mean, I've spent enough time with you on this budget, and I know that it needs to be approved. But we have needs for public safety that just cannot be met out of this budget unless.
Well, that's what he's saying is, that's precisely what we want you to do, is look at the numbers. And where you think
Well-
adjustments need to be made, that's what you put down.
Well, the point that I'm making is when will the budget stabilization fund be discussed, before or after the vote for approval of the budget?
Well, I think it should be done after we approve the budget. The money is not dissipated, it's in our pocket. Now, that goes into what amounts to available for capital expenditures. Actually, right now, it's earmarked for continuing operations, but we do have a large amount of it, and we need to review that, I believe. But right now, all we're saying is we need to lock down the regular operating budget. We need a robust discussion about our future and our plans in terms of capital improvements.
Your long-range 2- and 3-year plan got squashed.
Committee would not permit me to talk about that. My lips are sealed.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much. We'll make sure we get the budget figures to you before you leave today. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr. Webb?
None, thank you.
Mr. Lawson? No. Okay. All right. Next item is financial report, review of checks for signature. Who has not looked at the checks today? Anybody? We're not going to vote, of course, not for the regular meeting, but are there any questions about the checks for review today? Anyone?
I have one question. The traffic cones, et cetera, was that a purchase or a rental?
Purchase.
Purchase. Okay.
Okay, good question. Mr. Webb, any questions about the
No.
checks? Mr. Lawson, Mr. Watts, Mr. Smith?
No questions.
Very good, we'll move on. Next item is for, I believe, Rob, you're good to talk about the establishing rules for city parks. You have the floor.
All right. Hello, folks.
Howdy.
Just wanted to talk to you shortly about the park rules. Currently, we don't have any rules out at the parks. We devised a set of rules, one for the splash pad specifically, and then the other one that's specifically for Camellia Park, but can apply to the Municipal Park, Honor Park, basically all of our parks other than the splash pad. Those park rules were put through the Parks and Rec Committee. They were approved at that point to go to legal counsel, and I believe I did get the 2 sets of rules that I wanted back from legal counsel with revisements and all that. So at this point in time, the rules that you're about to see up there have been through legal counsel, also have been through the Parks and Rec Committee, have been approved by both, and I would like to go forward with them and put them out to the parks.
Okay.
I think. Mainly the rules are very much generic. They oppose, any kind of lewd activity, basically setting the hours for the parks from from dawn until dusk. It's also setting out, no tobacco products in the parks or alcoholic products. Animals must be leashed while in the parks. No horseplay, foul language, or illegal, disruptive, or destructive, or inappropriate activity. Also, in the pavilion areas, we ask the people to be courteous. So basically, just park rules that you would generally see with every other park that we've ever been to. We've wanted to place them in there so that our park attendants may be able to have some kind of written enforcement whenever they do talk to people if they're causing any kind of trouble. Any questions, folks?
Well, the copies of the proposed rules are in your packets. Everybody has that, right? And so I think what we're talking about here today is I want the council to review these rules and make any adjustments or anything you wish to modify on them, and then we'll place them on the next meeting's agenda to discuss. Once they're finalized, and then 2 weeks later, we can vote to approve. All right?
Sounds like a plan.
Sound good? Does everybody have what they need? Mr. Watt, you good?
Yeah.
Mr. Smith, is that right with you? Mr. Webb? Mr. Black? And Mr. Losh, you were good?
I will say, please don't amend them unless you absolutely, I mean, this thing has been going on and on and on.
And I will say, once again, it has gone through the Parks and
Sure,
Rec Committee.
it's gone through the mill.
Yeah,
And that's an important point.
Yeah.
You put it through the Parks Committee, you put it through the correct hoops, you put it through legal.
Well, they finally come up with
Yeah,
stuff to submit to
right,
the attorney, and the blessing is there. And
okay.
I wanted to ask appropriate address.
Well, that's something that we have put into the splash park
Okay.
area.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We do ask that there's appropriate dress
Yeah.
while you're at the splash pad. There are folks that, the splash pad's made for kids.
Right.
And what we are asking is that the adults don't try to show off
Right, right.
as much as possible. But yes, there is a dress code or a proposed no lewd dress
Right,
in the splash pad area.
yeah. I just know today that it's not the children, it's gonna be the parents that you're
Yes,
having to tell, you know.
And that's one reason why we wanted to put something like that in place,
Yeah.
because our park attendants are very courteous. They try to go in there
Right,
and promote a family atmosphere. When people come in there and have that kind of dress, it does lead to issues with other family
Yeah.
members out there.
people
So
get in fights over, jealous and that type stuff, and just,
definitely, yes, sir.
Who will determine that?
That will be determined by the park attendants. I've outlined with them very much with detail about what is considered lewd and what is considered not. For the most part, we really don't want anything in there that could very well be construed as being pornographic in nature or anything like that. So as long as they keep it PG as far as clothing is concerned, we really,
yeah.
that's what we're aiming for. Any other questions?
Anyone else? Mr. Webb?
Yes, sir.
How are these, a little bit of what he said, how is this enforced?
Well, sir,
The county deputies, they can get involved, or?
to be honest, we have park attendants that are out there, and the staff enforces the rules. Now, we've never come across a situation where a person has tried to buck the rules. However, at this point in time, we don't have these rules out there. So our park attendants are basically going on what I've proposed to them in the rules.
Right.
Oh, no, Mr.
It's a
Yes.
ordinance violation. It's an ordinance that's gonna be adopted, there's fines and whatnot. Just like any other ordinance with it.
How are they enforced?
But we're working on that.
I had suggested that the sheriff department, I don't know, I doubt you could put a monitor where you could actually see what's going on from the sheriff. I mean, go ahead.
I mean, I would like to comment on that. I mean, most of these rules that he's saying are just not local ordinances, they're state statute. So, yeah, there's a public lewdness,
Thank
there's
you.
disorderly conduct.
Yeah.
That's all enforceable right now without you ever trying to adopt an ordinance, because if you do, you're gonna have to try to figure out a way to fine, like we talked about before. State law covers just about everything that's
Yeah.
mentioned out there.
So, yeah, what
You're
he's
covered
saying
under
is,
13A.
if there's a
Not doing anything about
violation,
it.
the sheriff will write a
I
ticket.
think that they ought to have a little short thing, that these rules will adhere to, you will adhere to these rules and subject to Mobile County Sheriff Department, if not abided by, or something like that, because that way it takes your attendant out of the situation and puts somebody with authority.
Yes.
Even when they just drive up, people look at y'all, but if I drove up and said, if it was my responsibility or the Park and Recs people, they called some of the committee to come walk out there, that's not going to do anything. But if it's an authority, people
We'll
recognize.
respond, but there's still got to be a complaint. I mean, we're not gonna, we can't police the parks, but we will respond to any complaint that's there. So, I mean, yeah, we'll.
I just asked that monitoring, the people that you got monitoring has his number or somebody.
And that, once these rules are put into place, I want you all to know that there will be policy and procedure in place. Once the rules are enforced, or able to be enforced out there, I will train my folks out there to be able to respond to this in the appropriate manner.
Yeah, okay.
Give them the number 911.
I think they'll be able to get that. Yes, sir.
But anyway, I appreciate that.
No problem.
Yes, thank
I'm
you.
glad nothing's come up because, people, I don't know, if the city grows, there's going to be new types of people. So you got people that, I was at Sportsplex, and the children run around with no clothes on. And the mother was just, and it was smaller children, but again, that was a public, there evidently hadn't anything like this been happening at this place.
Well, definitely, as of right now, the standing order is if there is anything that does come up, they immediately contact me, and I go from there and take care of it.
Thank you, sir.
So not a problem there, but once these get enforced, I will put a policy in place for them and a procedure for them to abide by once that occurs.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Moving on, items, proposed resolutions for discussion. Items A and B are still tabled. They were tabled for last meeting for 30 days. I think we're all aware of those facts. If you have any questions regarding resolutions A or B, you can ask the author, Mr. Jason, about that. Okay? Moving on. Item C, 7C, is authorizing the agreement between the City of Semmes and the Alabama Department of Transportation for the cooperative maintenance of public rights-of-way. Basically, what we're talking about is a good news situation. This regards the new Popeye. And the state of Alabama says that since they are not requiring the sidewalk to be built there, the City of Semmes must take appropriate action and paperwork to accommodate that and deal with the insurance and all of that. Are there questions about that? Mr. Webb.
How much sidewalk is required?
So it's a 6-foot sidewalk, the width of the property, I think it's about 150 feet.
150 feet.
Can't handle that.
Yeah. Mr. Platt, question on
I'm good.
that? Mr. Washington? Mr. Watt?
How is that insured through the city? I mean,
Well,
like they fall off and hurt themselves or something?
there are two types of insurance that we have. And, of course, damage to property is AMIC. And if it's a damage or an employee is injured, then it's workman's comp. And my understanding is if it's an injury to a civilian, it would fall under AMIC. Is that right?
General liability.
Yeah. So we have general liability covered by our AMIC insurance.
Okay.
Okay. But we basically need this approval to go ahead with the project, correct?
Yes.
Yes. Without this, they cannot proceed. So this is the one thing, to my understanding, that's stopping the project for the moment. But it's a minor. But we're basically talking about the 150 feet in front of Popeyes that we would be responsible for if anybody was injured, so we'd have to do paperwork.
And it's also maintenance on the sidewalk.
Yes, we'd have to maintain it. So any questions, Mr. Smith?
I would hope we could expedite this approval.
Okay, Mr. Watts? Mr. Walshie?
No.
Mr. Platt?
Good.
Mr. Webb?
Thank
Okay. Moving on, this is item 7D, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Mobile County regarding the utilization of county-owned equipment and operators. This is a kind of the renewal of a contract that's been in place for a while. Essentially, on some of our smaller projects, we contract with the county, Mobile County, to provide equipment and their personnel to perform functions for us for which we are not equipped or staffed. They do this at a reduced hourly rate by employees, and so they go out and do the work, and my understanding is they perform the work at a fraction of what the normal contracting out process would be. They have the equipment, they have the personnel. This basically states that the agreement will continue, but if they are injured, let's see, make sure I got this right. If a Mobile County employee is injured on a Mobile County vehicle working for Semmes, Mobile County would not be liable, correct? Okay, so we would be liable for those actions because basically they're working as our agents, correct? Okay, that pretty much makes sense to everybody? Any questions, Mr. Smith, Mr. Webb, Mr. Plant?
I'm good, good.
Mr. Lawson? Okay, all right, and then, let's see, I believe, we're to committee reports. And finance has already spoken quite a bit. Do you have anything to add, Mr. Smith?
At the next meeting of the Finance Committee, we'll be looking at franchises, make sure we're getting what we're supposed to do. The website is supposed to be live momentarily,
Okay.
and that's our report.
Very good. Mr. Lawshie, roadways and right-of-ways.
Well, the question I got is, from Jason, is when they gonna fix the road by the post office?
Actually, that's part of the resurfacing project that we've got going on now. They just finished resurfacing Eastwood, Don, and Paula, and I've called the contractor and asked them, will they give us a price on fixing that area? And they said that they would, when they come to pave the next road, which is Shelley Drive, right next to the BWI, they would go ahead and do that for us for free.
Well, is South Alabama got any liability in this where they?
They're supposed to pay for it, but if we get it for free, I guess it'll be, we'll just send them a bill for the money that we've spent on it so far. Because we did do the patch, and when we had to get some traffic control out there one time, and we saved those bills to send them to them.
In fact, you've been working with the county to make sure that all the expenditures we've had
Yes.
for that from the time, the day the pipe burst until now has been covered and recaptured.
Right.
And the idea is that every penny we spend in city funds will be reimbursed by South Alabama Utilities. And I think you're tracking that
Yes.
fairly closely. But it is a good question because it was their responsibility. So, but it's a good question. All right. Mr. Lawshie, did you have anything else to hang out on your committee?
That's it.
All right, Mr. Platt, Public Safety.
I'm going to reserve mine until our regular
Okay.
session. I have some committee members, though. Are the Vigors have anything for the work session, or anybody?
That item you asked me to check on, I'll speak to you, I guess, later on. Maybe a representative could come down and talk to you about that.
Okay.
They could probably speak more eloquently about that than what I could.
All right. Mr. Byrd, anything?
I've been educated somewhat because of some things that I've seen on C-SPAN that have to do with major cities and the fact that the smaller cities are family-oriented, as which we should stay. And the major cities are not family-oriented, but they're the uppies and those people that have enough money to have a family and put them into expensive housing. You know what I'm saying? Here's the fact, folks. Cities are left, I'm talking about sway towards the left, major cities. The major cities are what's the problem now with the president currently elected. The major cities are against him. They fight him on immigration. They fight him on infrastructure. They fight him on global warming. The top of that is safety. safety is the most important for the smaller cities and for the larger cities.
Yes. Yes, sir.
We need a balance in this country, and somehow or other, we have forgotten that we have a legislature which creates laws. We have judges who should only enforce the laws as they are designed to be followed by the original Constitution of this United States. Not by the laws that have taken place since then, but by the original laws. Third thing is, you have those three parts of our country that should be in balance at all times. I think there should also be a balance between the authority and the population that you have in the major cities compared to the population in the urban and rural areas. You follow what I'm saying? So that we always have people who are on the left, which occur and are going to the major cities, younger people who don't know what they're doing, you follow what I'm saying, and don't have any responsibility to raise a family and to take care of a family. The second thing is, we need to have enough people on the other side in the urban and rural areas to combat or balance, you follow what I'm saying? So that this country stays in balance.
Yes.
And we can agree to disagree, but still be able to get things done that will make us, this country, progressive and great again.
I think we found our speaker.
No, I vote for him.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd.
Thank you, Mr. Byrd.
Thank you very much. Ms. Weiger, Mr. Platt.
Just as we're kind of still on the public safety
Oh, sure.
communication, I want to stand up where everyone can hear. Obviously, we are all watching Hurricane Irma right now. This is going to be a test for our city departments, from Jason, Corporal Hardy, obviously looking over at Chief Brooks. As a city, now's the time to be proactive in that. They're real quick to bash us whenever we don't do anything right. I would start right now with posting as soon as the website comes up. Let's go ahead and start getting the information out. Be neighborly. Check on your neighbors. What do you need? What can we do? How can I help you? If we as a city right now go ahead and start taking that and moving forward with it, then ultimately it's going to be a positive reinforcement. If it doesn't hit us, great. We just got some practice. One thing that is concerning to me, I think it's a great time when you're talking about capital improvements and the budget as well as this committee, we do not have an EOC here within the city specifically to house our personnel with a storm of this scale. So right now, as we're talking about going forward and into the future, when this topic comes up, you all kind of know why we're asking for it. But outside of that, I would say from the drainage system, as we know that was such an issue out in Texas, I'm personally going to go ahead and reach out to the builders in our area as this storm may approach, pull your barriers, get them away from the drains, because whenever they're in the midst of construction, obviously they're trying to get, keep trash from getting into it, but right now we need everything to flow. So we certainly don't need that bogged down. We'll do whatever we can to help. I'm sure David will be deployed to the fire station if it gets close, but you've got resources here, and I will go ahead and start getting them prepared.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Good comments. Appreciate it.
And David, you gonna hold yours? You did the research, sorta, kinda, maybe?
Sorta, kinda. I would prefer that somebody from that department speak on that matter, because they're well versed in
That's
what
good
I
enough.
am.
Okay.
I have been out of that process for a long time, and it's just changed so much, I'm not sure I could speak
All right.
about it.
Thank you, thank you.
Anything else, Mr. Platt?
No, sir, I'm sorry, this is all done.
Okay. Are there any legal counsel, or staff comments? Any other business that might come before the meeting? All right, we're going to be adjourned. Second. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We will reconvene for the regular meeting in about 10 minutes. Let everybody stretch their legs, walk around, come back in about 10 minutes, and we will go into the regular session.
Thank you, Jesus.
The time is 4:51. Thank you for your participation today. Meeting is now called to order at 4:51. This is the regular session of the City of Semmes Council meeting. Roll call.
Mayor Baker,
Here.
Councilmember Watts.
Here.
Councilmember Smith,
Here.
Councilmember Webb,
Here.
Councilmember Platt,
Yeah.
Councilmember LaShie.
Here.
Very good, thank you. I was gonna ask Mrs. Bird, would you feel like doing our invocation today? And Chief, would you do our pledge? Okay, please stand.
Let's bow our heads. Father, we thank you that you're our God. We thank you that you're King of Kings and Lord of Lords, and that you're not surprised about anything that happens. We thank you, Father, for your wisdom, for we need your wisdom in what to do. Thank you for your safety and your protection for our fire department, for our police, for all of our families. And we thank you, Father, for helping us today to do what is right. In the name of Jesus, amen.
Join me in saying the pledge. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you all. Very good. First item of business is the consideration of the minutes from the regular council session on August 15th, 2017. Has everyone had a chance to review those minutes? If not, please take a few right now.
Yeah, I have one.
Everybody through reviewing their minutes?
Move we accept the minutes as presented.
A second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? The minutes from the August 15th regular session are approved. Okay. Do we have any presentations or guest speakers today? Very good. Next item is the official approval of all checks for signature. Is there anyone on the council who has not seen the checks for today's approval? Mr. Smith, have you seen them all? Mr. Watts? Mr. Platt?
Good.
Mr. Webb, we're good to go. Mr. LaShie?
Move they be approved. Second.
Get roll call vote.
Councilmember Watts,
Yes.
Councilmember Smith,
Yes.
Councilmember Webb,
Yes.
Councilmember Platt,
Yes.
Councilmember LaShie,
Yes.
Mayor Baker.
Yes, very good. The checks are approved for signature. There are no ordinances today. The first two resolutions are tabled from 30 days as of the last meeting. Resolution C and D, is there a motion for immediate consideration?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Watts?
Yeah.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Webb?
Yes.
Councilmember Platt?
Yes.
Councilmember Walshy?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes. Very good. As you know, during the work session, we discussed these two. One is the authorizing agreement between the City of Semmes and the Alabama Department of Transportation for the cooperative maintenance of public right-of-way. This is 150 feet of sidewalk in front of the proposed Popeyes. I believe it was discussed in pretty good detail. Are there any questions? Mr. Walshy, do you have questions about C? Mr. Platt?
No, sir.
Mr. Webb?
None.
Move we approve. Second.
Roll call vote.
Councilmember Watts?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Webb?
Yes.
Councilmember Platt?
Yes.
Councilmember Walshy?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes. Item C, Resolution 9C is approved. Moving on, Resolution 9D, authorizing the mayor to enter into an agreement with Mobile County regarding the utilization of county-owned equipment and operators. I believe we discussed this in rather detail during the work session. Any additional comments or questions, Mr. Smith?
No question.
Mr. Watt? No, sir. Mr. Webb?
None.
Mr. Platt?
No, sir.
Mr. Walshy?
No.
Very good. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, roll call vote.
Councilmember Watts?
Yes.
Councilmember Smith?
Yes.
Councilmember Webb?
Yes.
Councilmember Platt?
Yes.
Councilmember Walshy?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes. Very good. Moving on to comments and announcements. As was said earlier, we're all watching the hurricane cautiously in the ocean, and we're not exactly sure which way it's going to go. But as you know, we want to encourage people to make sure that they have in their homes adequate supplies, flashlights, canned foods, water, generator if they have them, make sure they have the correct type of fuel. We want to remind people to check those generators now while they have time to make adjustments, make sure those generators work, and by all means, make sure those generators are properly ventilated, because every year you read about generators that are cranked up too close to where people are sleeping and bad things happen. So be careful with generators. But that's important. We will watch that. As discussed, we will be very, very attentive to the direction of this hurricane. And of course, if it turns in our direction, we will take appropriate actions. We have our emergency plan in place. We've exercised it. And I believe that, I feel confident that we will take the necessary measures to get through this should it come our way. All right. That's all. Any other comments or announcements?
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Mr. President, we, now, I believe every
Oh, yes.
has an actual copy of the,
Does everyone have all the budget data that they need?
should be the one that's stapled together.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much.
Ms. Walsh, you have all you
Apologize
need?
for not giving that to you
That's all
earlier.
right. Mr. Platt, do you have all you need, budget?
Yes, sir. I would like to address the rest of the council when we
Okay.
have a few minutes.
All right. Mr. Webb? Any questions? You have all the information on?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Smith? Again, I would ask the council, please take this information home, study it, ask us questions about it. We have 10 working days to review this, to understand it, to get it firmly in our minds. If you have questions, ask. There's no such thing as a foolish question. It's just the one that is not asked. We want you to be comfortable about this. If we need to make adjustments or amendments, we'll do so. But this is the heart of what we do this time of year, is developing a planning tool, a financial tool for the next fiscal year. And it's very, very serious business, as we all know. And I know you'll do your best to make this work. Any other comments or announcements? Yeah, I got that coming up next. Let's see. Next will be public comments. Do we have any public comments?
Yes, sir. Marshall and Mary Gardner.
Okay. All right. Well, please come on up, and you see the podium. You have 3 minutes. So we are all ears.
That's quick. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Attendees.
Yes, sir.
My name's Marshall. This is my wife, Mary Gardner. We reside at 4241 Pamona Parkway. and we've lived there for almost 8 years. Now, when we first moved into the house, it was a very pleasant house to live in. We could enjoy our patio with barbecues and such what, stay outside. But over the past few years, there's a tire store in front of us. And the tires is piling up big time. They're probably 6 feet above the privacy fence. And it's a huge pile of them. I believe it's a fire hazard. And we can't even walk outside our house without getting eaten with mosquitoes. We cannot take our dogs outside. We can't even have company come over. I mean, we literally, when we open our back door to go outside to the carport, mosquitoes fly into our house. I have a couple of bugs happening. And I was just wanting to try to bring that to the council, see what we could do about getting something done about all the tires there. I don't know if there's an ordinance for the city.
What was the address, sir?
I live at 4241 Pomona Parkway, which is right Pomona, P-A-M.
Pomona.
Yes.
Okay, Pomona, okay, Pomona.
You have to excuse me, I had a stroke about 2 months ago.
Oh, no, I just wanted to make sure I heard the street right, that's all.
And,
4241 Pomona
Yes.
Parkway. Okay.
And, you know, I really, you know, I try to be a good neighbor and get along, but,
Right.
you know, it's hard for me to even get out in my yard to clean up. I mean, we literally have to spray down with mosquito dope just to walk
Right.
outside. And I hadn't seen a mosquito truck in 2 years.
Okay.
I don't know if we still have one that works in the city or not, but we hadn't seen one come down our street.
What's a good number to reach you, sir?
Our house phone is 251
Okay.
644.
We'll look into it.
Okay.
Yes, sir, and thank you both for bringing it forward today.
All right.
Look
I
into
even
it.
got pictures of it.
Yes,
Have
ma'am.
already up on the.
Yes, ma'am. We'll take a look at
The
them.
reason I'm bringing it up to y'all
Sure.
is it's, you know, it's a news and of course for us being there.
Sure.
And, it's just, you know, I have a lot of oak trees and stuff like that. And
Right.
if there's ever a fire back there, it's coming on our property.
I understand.
You know, it's real dangerous.
And you're concerned about the mosquitoes and is there?
It's a health hazard.
I understand, sir.
But I appreciate y'all taking the time to listen to us today.
Yes, sir.
Sir, I will say that we'll do more than look into it. I pulled up a draft of an ordinance that Mr. Smith has been working on. I think that we have become a real, honest to goodness government entity because everything takes forever to get done.
Yes.
But it's in the works.
I appreciate that.
I have one question.
Sure, yes, sir.
The tire store, does the business face Moffett Road?
Yes.
It's, there's a couple of other citizens that complained too, so.
I've actually had to call the fire department there last year because they was burning some plastic and rubber, but I asked them to quit doing it and he quit doing that. And I hadn't had no more, because it had got so bad, you couldn't, I mean, you could smell it in my house, it was coming through.
I understand.
But, and you know, I hate to complain, but like I said, it's a shame when you can't even enjoy your own place.
It's affecting your quality of life.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Yes,
It
sir.
gets everybody's attention. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next speaker, public comment.
That's all.
That's all? Very good. All right, we are now to item 12. Other business that might come before the meeting. Mr. Platt, I wanted to give you your opportunity. You wanted to address something?
Yes, sir, I'll try to be brief, but you know me.
Is that a promise?
No, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to let the council know that I'm aware of the work that Councilman Smith and the Finance Committee have put into this budget. And I am not going to disagree with what Mr. Smith has presented. I'm ready to approve that budget when he asked me to. However, I have concerns that I want to make public, and we're just going to have to resolve these issues. And I believe that, well, I know for a fact Mr. Smith knows these problems also, and he is looking for a solution. I've asked the chief to present you with this chart. I don't think the average citizen in any way at all understands how a fire department works. I do not. But the color-coded stuff, I think, makes it easier, okay? I am at odds with a few council persons, but we need more firemen, period. We need more firemen, okay? We need more equipment. And this budget that is proposed is very, very tight. And I have a question as to what will happen to the rainy day funds, what I call it, budget stabilization funds. Mr. Smith and I have different opinions on that. It's nothing at all. He thinks that we can cut that more than I would like, but again, I'm going to approve whatever Mr. Smith asked me to approve because I trust the man and his finance committee. You heard the sheriff or the captain earlier. We need a minimum of 2 deputies and a supervisor and an investigator. We've been discussing for a year now, we need to move a station off of Morris Hill. We've got a lot of needs and it's going to take a lot of money. It's going to take a lot of money. And I just didn't want you guys to forget when we have the opportunity to vote on this budget, we need some assurance that these needs are not going to be overlooked. That's all I really have to say. It's just that we have some immediate needs and money is tight. I'm disappointed that the finance committee did not want to address the capital funds for next year. And we're going to be asked to vote on the budget without knowing, I guess, what we're going to do with that money. But again, I trust the committee. I do trust the committee. But we're going to have to work together, and some of these things keep getting put off, and they keep getting put off. And it's time to put an end to that. We need a station. We need more law enforcement. We need equipment. We need a location for a fire station, which I know we cannot afford. And I guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Let me make a statement here. A budget is a guideline.
Right.
We have to have a budget. And if something comes up, we even did this in a church. We had something to arise. We met the money was in the bank, and we took care of the emergency. So the budget is just guideline. We got to have something to go by. Got to have some limits to a certain extent. But if emergencies arise, we can make an exception to the budget.
Mr. Webb,
We can take care of that.
I think you and I talk enough that you know, I feel that this is an emergency that exists today. And we've done a lot. We have done a lot.
Well, I know I was in law enforcement for a while, and I know one thing, and everybody in here will agree with me. Public safety comes first. Everything else second. Public first. Public safety comes first. And we want to take care of that.
I just don't want the council to lose sight of what I feel that we need to keep foremost.
We will take care of the citizens, whatever it takes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mr. Webb.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other business that might come before the meeting?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you all.